they had basically caught, the pirates had begun actually impressing men. They always had a tradition where they would take you into the crew and they give you your choice, get thrown overboard and die or join the crew. And, most people did join the crew. And they would get off if they could prove that they had been forced to become a pirate in a trial. But they began actually going ashore at night, almost like press gangs, and press ganging men into becoming pirates. And because they couldn't get enough people. And that, once they caught and hung Blackbeard, I mean not caught and hung Blackbeard, but once they got Blackbeard and whacked his head off, and they began making horrible examples, and they had been doing it all along, but suddenly they caught a lot of really famous pirates like Blackbeard and Bartholomew Roberts and a whole bunch of them, and they just, they took their corpses and they carved them so they would be preserved, and they hung them up in prominent places for people to see. So there was more horrendous examples. That moment, that's one of the few moments that in Pirates of the Caribbean where it's really historically accurate, where Captain Jack whips off his hat and stands there at attention as they pass these grisly corpses that are hanging as a warning, pirates, beware, because they really did that. It was pretty gross. And so they had happened to catch a whole bunch of them right around the same time, including, and then there was Samuel Bellows. Is that his name? Samuel Bellows? I think that was his name. And his fleet was caught in a hurricane, and that was destroyed. So all at once, quite a few of the major pirates in like a 4 or 5 year span got wiped out. And then the better treatment and the and the socio-economic and political atmosphere, it just didn't make sense for people to go pirating as much. So it kind of cut it off. Okay, more comments from the audience? I'd love to hear what you have to say. You had one turn, sir.
One brief comment.
Go ahead.
Henry Morgan and some others made a great deal of money in their piracy, not so much by attacking ships, but by attacking rich towns, particularly the ones that dealt with the Spanish gold and silver trade.
That's correct. Henry Morgan actually got the mule train full of silver and gold across the Isthmus of Panama, and he took that. It took him 2 tries, but he got it, and from the Spanish gold and silver mines. And that was a wonderful exploit. I was going to have Captain Jack do that. I mean, steal from the best. Actually, almost everything that you can find in Captain Blood, Henry Morgan did. I mean, Raphael 17, he knew, steal from the best. And that's what he did. So I was going to have Captain Jack do that. And I was going to have a lot of fun with, the two clowny guys, like Pintel and Rigetti, having them trying to lead mules. Now that would have been funny, right? Having the 2 of them having to try to deal with mules, these 2, idiots, with the eye popping out and all that kind of thing. But oh well. So anyway, more comments from the audience? Yes?
I had a question of, when is in this book, is it going to be like before the movies, after the movies, and in the middle?
It will actually, I'm not really at liberty to be too definite about this, but I'll tell you, that what's currently planned, and this could change, is for me to write the story of how Captain Jack became a pirate. He was once a real merchant captain who was sailing, living a legitimate life. Now, of course, he'd grown up under the influence of Captain T, who is probably his daddy. I mean, they made that pretty clear, but they never quite stated it, so I can't say he is for sure, but they made it pretty clear on Shipwreck Cove. And so, so Jack's idea, as I've got things planned out at this point, is that Jack's idea of rebelling against authority, which young men frequently do, was to go legitimate and become a merchant sailor to really, annoy his daddy, so to speak. And so Jack was a merchant sailor and became a merchant captain. And then what went wrong? How did he go back to piracy? How did he wind up becoming a pirate? And that's so far the subject of the book. So it's sort of a prequel. And it's set well before the events of sir.
One of the things that makes me think of is one book I've got on that called Raiders and Rebels, which goes with the idea that the pirates were themselves basically rebels against what was everywhere highly stratified societies. You know, if you're at the low end, that was where you were going to be, period. That's where you were always going to be. With piracy, you might never really be high status, but you could, let us say, achieve something at least.
You could be free.
And in that sense, for example, he says that while Captain Kidd, for example, definitely committed piratical acts, he was never pirate because he was always someone who wanted to be, and to a certain degree was, just a regular part of society.
Well, Henry Morgan became governor, world governor.
Yeah, he did go legit.
Just like Captain Blood. Yeah,
That's where Sabatini got it.
that's exactly.
Found off the serial numbers. People touch up drama.
Well, there's the, definitely a clever writer there. Michael, do you have any comments?
Well, I was going to say that the milieu I'm more familiar with reading fictional accounts of is Horatio Hornblower's time, which was considerably later. I guess the technology had not changed a whole lot between whenever this time. I keep on asking, well, when is this? What year is did these Jack Sparrow movies take place? And obviously, there's a whole range of dates that they could be because they picked and choose from various time frames. But Horatio Hornblower is kind of my hero on the seas, and yeah, it's interesting to compare the way those crews are treated. I mean, basically, you're saying that they were treated better, but even in the mid 1800s, they were still being.
It was not a fun life.
Yeah, they were still impressing people. Basically getting people off. Going to a seacoast town and saying, "Okay, come with us," or beat them over the head and bring them.
I've read the Hornblower book. Yeah.
There's a whole one. I forget which one it is, but the first quarter of it almost is just Hornblower takes over the ship, and he's very short of a crew, and he's got everybody. Yeah,
that was the original Hornblower
That's the
novel.
one that ends with Hornblower being taken off to the French prison?
Yeah.
Yeah, because he had a frigate, and he's got his crew from that, basically, so
right.
Guess what, you're not crewing this ship. We don't want to. You don't care what you want. It doesn't
being brought on board just, by force to be part of this crew, and especially if you were subject to seasickness or whoever, they didn't test you for that.
I can remember his collecting volunteers.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Captain Honorio Harp Player, R.N. by Harry Harrison. That's a great parody. Yes. I don't care what.
For pirates, of course, for pirates, that would be a period of John Lafitte, who was operating then.
Well, my book, just for argument's sake, I basically picked a year that seemed to cover it pretty well. So in my head, and this will not be reflected in the book anywhere because they don't want to nail me down that closely, but my book takes place in 1700, which was, a nice round year. And then that was with Jack and Black Pearl and the adventures of the trilogy of movies is taking place about 1715 or so. Before the end of the piracy, but towards, after the Golden Age. And I think that was fairly appropriate. Except the Port Royal was still there, but this is Disney. What are you going to do? One of the fun things that you'll have to look for in the book, and I hope I'm allowed to do it, is they told me the only pirates that I could put in that exists are fictional pirates. And so I definitely have a scene planned where Captain Teague is talking to another pirate, and he's saying something about, have you heard that James is back? And the other pirate says, really, James is back? Are you sure? And he's like, he disappeared for so long. He says, yep. Has a hook for his hand and a horror of small boys.